Chapter 12. Into the Terrible Night. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all the cicadas stopped buzzing at once. They left such an emptiness in the air it hurt your ears. Around 4 o'clock we heard thunder. Maddie turned over the close sign in the window and said, "Come on, I want you to smell this." She wanted Esperanza to come too, and surprisingly she agreed. I went upstairs to phone Edna and Miss Parsons, though I practically could have yelled to them across the park to say I'd be home later than usual. Edna said that was fine, just fine. The kids were no trouble, and we were prepared to leave. At the last minute, it turned out that Esteban could come too. He had the night off. The restaurant was closed for some unexpected family celebration. We all piled into the cab of Maddie's truck with Esperanza on Esteban's lap, and me straddling the stick shift. The three of us had no idea where we were headed, or why, but the air had sparks in it. I felt as though I had a blind date with Destiny, and someone had heard a rumor that Destiny looked like Christopher Reeve. Maddie said that for the Indians who lived in this desert, who had lived here long before Tucson ever came along, today was New Year's Day. "What, July 12th?" I asked. Because that's what the day it was. But Maddie said not necessarily. They celebrate on whatever day the first summer's rain fell. That began the new year. Everything started over then, she said. They planted their crops, the kids ran naked through the puddles while their mothers washed their clothes, and blankets and everything else they owned. And they all drank cactus fruit wine until they fell over from happiness. Even the animals and plants came alive again when the drought finally broke. "You'll see," Maddie said. "You feel the same way." Maddie turned onto a gravel road. We bounced through several stream beds with dry, pebbled bottoms scorched white, and eventually pulled over on high ground about a mile or so out of town. We picked our way on foot through the brush to a spot near a grove of black-trunked mesquite trees on the very top of the hill. The whole Tucson Valley lay in front of us, resting in its cradle of mountains. The sloped desert plains that lay between us and the city was like a palm stretched out for a fortune teller to read, with its mounds and hillocks, its lifelines and heartlines of dry stream beds. A storm was coming up from the south, moving slowly. It looked something like a huge blue-gray shower curtain being drawn along by the hand of God. You could just barely see through it, enough to make out the silhouette of the mountains on the other side. From time to time, nervous white ribbons of lightning jumped between the mountain tops and the clouds. A cool breeze came up behind us, sending shivers along the spines of the mesquite trees. The birds were excited, flitting along the ground and perching on thin, wildly waving weed stalks. What still amazed me about the desert was all the life it had in it. Hillbilly that I had come to Arizona expecting an endless area of sand dunes. I learned of deserts from old westerns and quick-draw Magawa cartoons. But this desert was nothing like that. There were bushes and trees and weeds here exactly the same as anywhere else, except that the colors were different and everything alive had thorns. May told us the names of things, but the foreign words rolled right back out of my ears. I only remembered a few. The saguaros were the great big spiny ones, as tall as normal trees, but so skinny and person-like that you always had the feeling they were looking over your shoulder. Around their heads, around this time of year, they wore crowns of bright red fruit, split open like mouths. And the acotillos were the dead-looking thorny sticks that stuck up out of the ground in clusters, each one with a flaming orange spike of flowers but at its top. These looked to me like candles from hell. Maddie said all the things that looked dead were just dormant. As soon as the rain came, they would sprout leaves and grow. It happened so fast, she said. You could practically watch it. As the storm moved closer, it broke into hundreds of pieces so that the rain fell here and there from the high clouds in long, curving gray plumes. It looked like maybe 50 or 60 fires scattering over the city, except that the tall, smoky columns were flowing in reverse. And if you look closely, you could see that in some places the rain didn't make it all the way to the ground. 3/4 of the way down from the sky it just vanished in dry air. Rays of sunlight streamed from between the clouds like the Holy Ghost on the cover of one of Maddie's dead husband's magazines. Lightning hit somewhere nearby, and the thunder made Esperanza and me jump. It wasn't all that close, really, but about 2 miles according to Maddie. She counted the seconds between the lightning strike and the thunder. 5 seconds equaled 1 mile, she told us. One of the plumes of rain was moving towards us. We could see big drops spattering on the ground, and when it came closer we could hear them, as loud as pebbles on a window, coming fast. 1 minute we were dry, then we were being pelted with cold raindrops, then our wet shirts were clinging to our shoulders, and the rain was already on the other side of us. All 4 of us were jumping and gasping because of the way the sudden cold took our breath away. Maddie was counting out loud between the lightning and the thunderclaps. 6, 7, boom. 4, 5, 6, boom. Esteban danced with Esperanza, then with me holding his handkerchief under his arm, and then twirling it high in the air. It was a flirtatious, marvelous dance with the thunder of the music. I remembered how he and I had once jumped almost naked into an icy stream together. How long ago that seemed, and how innocent, and I was madly in love with him, among other people. I couldn't stop laughing. I had never felt so happy. That was when we smelled the rain. It was so strong it seemed like more than just a smell. When we stretched out our hands, we could practically feel it rising from the ground. I don't know how a person could ever describe that scent. It certainly wasn't sour, but it wasn't sweet either, not like a flower. Pungent is the word Esteban used. I would have said clean. To my mind, it was like nothing so much as a wonderfully clean, scrubbed pine floor. Matt explained that it was caused by greasewood bushes, which she said produced a certain chemical when it rained. I asked her if anybody had ever thought to bottle it, and it was so wonderful. She said no, but that if you paid attention you could even smell it in town. That you could always tell if it was raining in any part of the city. I wondered if the smell was really so great, or if it just seemed that way to us, because of what it meant. It was after sunset when we made our way back to the truck. The clouds had turned pink, then blood red, and the sunlight was dark. Fortunately, Maddie, who was troubled with night blindness, had thought to bring a flashlight. The night was full of sounds, bird calls, a high quivery owl hoot, and something that sounded like sheep's baas, only 100 times louder. These would ring out from the distance and then startle us by answering right from under our feet. Maddie said they were spadefoot toads. All that noise came from something no bigger than a quarter. I would never have believed it, except that I have seen cicadas. So how does a toad get into the middle of the desert? I want to know. Does it rain toad frogs in Arizona? They're here all along, Smarty, burrowed in the ground. They wait out the dry months, kind of dead-like, just like everything else. And then when the rain comes out, they wake up and crawl the ground and start to holler. I was amazed. There seemed to be no end to things that could be hiding, waiting it out, right where you thought you could see it all. Geez, I said, as one of them let out a squall next to my sneaker. Only 2 things are worth making so much noise about. Death and sex, Esteban said. He had the devil in him tonight. I remembered a dream about him a few nights before, only that I had not, until that minute, known I had. A very detailed dream. I felt a flush crawling up my neck, and was glad for the dusk. We were following Maddie's voice to keep on to the trail, concentrating on avoiding the embrace of spiny arms and the darkness. It's all one to a toad, Maddie said. It's not the one, it's the other. They don't have long to make hay in weather like this. We might not get another good rain for weeks. By morning there'll be eggs in every one of those puddles. In 2 days' time, even less. You can see tadpoles. Before the puddles dry up, they'll sprout legs and hit the road again. We We were falling behind Maddie in a single file now, holding to one each other's damp sleeve and arms in the darkness. All at once Esperanza's fingers closed hard around my wrist. This flashlight beam had found a snake just at eye level, its muscular coils looped around a smooth tree trunk. "Better step back easy, that's a rattler," Maddie said in a calm voice. With the flashlight, she followed the coils to the end and pointed out the bulbs on the tail, as clear as fragile-looking as glass beads. The rattle was poised upright, but did not shake. "I didn't know they could get up trees," I said. "Sure, they climb. After birds' eggs." A little noise came from my throat. I wasn't really afraid, but that there was something about seeing a snake that makes your stomach tighten, no matter how you make up your mind to feel about it. "Fair's fair," Maddie pointed out, as we skirted a wide path around the tree. "Already got her own mouse to feed." I knew right away that something bad had gone wrong. Luann was standing on the front porch waiting, and she looked terrible. Not just because she was under a yellow light bulb. She'd been crying, possibly screaming. Her mouth looked stretched. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. I ran up the sidewalk, almost tripping twice on the steps. "What is it? Are you okay?" "It's not me, Taylor. I'm sorry I have to tell you this. I'm so sorry, Taylor. It's Turtle." "Oh, God, no." I went past her into the house. Anna Poppy was sitting on the sofa with Turtle in her lap, all in one piece as far as I could see. But Turtle was changed. All these months we had spent together were gone for her. I knew it from her eyes. 2 cups of black coffee. I remember exactly how the whites of her eyes had been thin slivers of moon around the dark centers. How they glowed orange on and off with the blinking neon light from the godforsaken bar. I didn't go to her because I couldn't. It is that simple. I didn't want any of this to be happening. Miss Parsons was standing in the kitchen door with a broom. "A bird has gotten into the house," she explained, and disappeared into the kitchen again. For a confused second I thought she meant that this was a terrible thing that had happened to me. But Luann was right behind me. They were in the park, Edna and Turtle. It was so cool after the rain. They thought they'd enjoy the air for a little bit. And Virgie was to come tell them if it looked like another storm was coming. But Virgie didn't come, and Edna never realized it was getting dark. So what happened? I was sick to my stomach. You don't know exactly. I called the police, and they were coming over with the medical examiner or a social worker. Of course, I don't know. Somebody that can talk to Turtle. What happened? How much do you know what happened? And his eyes looked more glassy than usual. I noticed now that I looked at her that her clothes were a little messed up. Just traces, the red sweater pulled down on one shoulder, a hole in her stocking. I heard a peculiar sound, Edna said. She seemed almost in another world. A hypnotized person speaking out of a trance. It sounded just like a bag of flour hitting the dirt. Turtle had been talking or singing, I suppose, would be more like it, and then she was just quiet, just didn't make a peep. But I heard struggling sounds. I called out, then I swung my cane. Oh, I swung it high, so I wouldn't hit the baby. I know how tall she is. She held her hand just where Turtle's head would be, if she had been standing on the floor in front of Edna. Did you hit anything? Oh, yes, dear, yes. I don't know what, but something that had I'd say, some give to it. Do you understand what I mean? Oh, and I shouted too, some terrible things. Next thing I knew, I felt a great heavy weight on the hem of my skirt, and that was Turtle. It took us 20 minutes to get her to turn loose, Luann said. Now she was holding on to Edna's sleeve instead of her hem. Oh, my dear, I feel terrible. If I had only thought to come a little sooner. It could have happened to anybody, Edna, Luann said.